بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على شرف الأنبياء والمرسلين محمد رسول الله صلى الله عليه وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم تسليما كثيرا كثيرا. فما بعد, my brothers and sisters, we are on the story of Sayyidina Omar ibn Al Khattab رضي الله عنه. And as I was saying, I am convinced that people like Sayyidina Omar رضي الله عنه were divinely guided. They were the real awliya of Allah, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala guides them and Allah protects them. And this is what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala did with Sayyidina Omar ibn Al Khattab رضي الله عنه. If you see the kinds of things that he did, to imagine that here was a person who was literally, he grew up grazing sheep and goats, and he said, I used to graze sheep and goats for my aunts. And actually, let me tell you the story. One day, Sayyidina Omar رضي الله عنه, when he was the Khalifa, he called the people to the masjid. They all came, the masjid filled with people. Then he stood on the mimbar and he said, I want you to know that I used to be a shepherd boy when I was growing up. And I used to graze the sheep and goats of my aunts. And once in a while I would lose one of them. And my aunts used to beat me. And he said that for doing this work, I would get a handful of raisins or dates at the end of the day. And today, I am the Khalifa of the Muslims. I am the Amir of the Muslims. That's it. And he got down from the member. People dispersed. Abdurrahman ibn Auf radiallahu anhu was there, and he was a close friend of Sayyidina Umar radiallahu anhu. So Abdurrahman ibn Auf radiallahu anhu asked him, he said, what was the point of this khutbah? He said, all you did was you stood on the mimbar and you demeaned yourself, you insulted yourself, and that was it. So what was the point of this? Why did you do that? Sayyidina Umar radiallahu anhu said that I was walking in the street, I was coming towards the masjid, when my nafs said to me, Ya Umar, MashaAllah, you are now the Khalifatul Muslimin. You are now the Amirul Mu'mineen. You are the ruler of the Muslims and ruler of all these lands. So I thought to myself that my nafs, my heart, my desire, myself needs to be taught a lesson of who Umar really is, radiallahu anhu. And it's only by the grace of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that Allah has given me this position today. So this was the tawadi, this was the humility of Sayyidina Umar radiallahu anhu. This was his tremendous knowledge of his self. Imagine the level of tazkiyah of the nafs, where first of all he's so continuously aware of himself and his own nafs. And secondly, then he has the courage to do what it takes to literally put his self in place. Now such people, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala guides them. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned this in the Quran, in the longest ayat of the longest ayat of the Quran, the ayat of Surah Al-Baqarah, which starts with إِذَا تَدَايَنْتُمْ بِدَيْنٍ إِلَىٰ أَجَلٍ مُسَمَّى, and then at the end of that ayah, which is a full page, 15 lines, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, the one who has taqwa, Allah will guide him. يُعَلِّمُكُمُ اللَّهِ مَن يَتَّقِ اللَّهِ يُعَلِّمُكُمُ اللَّهِ. The one who has taqwa, Allah will teach him. And this is what was the case with Sayyidina Umar ibn Al Khattab radiallahu anhu, also with Khalid bin Walid radiallahu anhu, and I will explain to you when we come there why I say that. But with Sayyidina Umar radiallahu anhu, if you think about this, here was a man who grew up like this, with grazing sheep and goats. Of course, he learned to read and write, so he was one of the literate people among the Quraysh and in Makkah and Medina, which was very few of them. And then he was under the tutelage and under the guidance of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam for a number of years. So he had no experience of running a state, running an administration, running a bureaucracy, of land revenue, of the administration of a whole country. And then this country, within his lifespan, within his khilafah, between the khilafah of Abu Bakr Siddiq Radi Allah Anhu for 2 years and then Sayyidina Umar's khilafah, it literally exploded from one little sort of town of Medina and then Makkah and then some of the surrounding areas to these two towns and then to the Hijaz in Arabia, and then it expanded. Literally, I'm saying exploded because that's what happened in the south, the whole of Yemen, in the north, Iraq, and then Syria, and the whole of the Byzantine, of 3/4 of the Byzantine Empire, the whole of the Persian Empire, an amazing, expansion that went. Just to give you the actual list of what the Islamic Empire consisted of. It was the whole of Iraq, the whole of Egypt, Libya, Tripoli, Persia, Khorasan, Eastern Anatolia, South Armenia, then Tajikistan, and then Jerusalem, which is the first Qibla, Baitul Maqdis, the whole of the Sassanid Persian Empire, and 2/3 of the Eastern Roman Empire, of the Byzantine Empire. All of this was during the time of Sayyidina Omar ibn Al Khattab Radi Allah Anhu. The conquest of Jerusalem, I mentioned in my last class, so I won't mention it here, but this was the expansion. Now, imagine, this is a man who has experience only, if at all, of running a small little town, is suddenly presented with this enormous country which is comprised of many countries, and he has to run that whole thing. And he ran that so fantastically well. He set up an entire administrative system, governors, provinces, bureaucracy, record keeping, budgeting, revenue, right? He set up different political and civil administration jobs, such as the chief secretary, which is called the Khatib, the military secretary, Khatibul Diwan, then the revenue collector, the Sahibul Kharaj, the police chief is Sahibul Ahdat, the treasury officer, Sahib Baitul Mal, and many other official posts. He consolidated, he set up converted the army from being a conscript army into a full-scale standing army with hierarchies, with commands, with a command structure, with being paid salaries and so on. He established as I said, the Baitul Mal, the entire revenue system. He was the first to establish a special department for the investigation of complaints against officers of the state. Right? This was an amazing thing. And in that context, and he was so particular, so strict with everybody. There's a famous case where Omar ibn Al-As Radi Allah Anhu, one of the great Sahaba of Rasulullah, a close friend of Khalid bin Walid, he was the governor of Egypt. Now his son got into an altercation with the Egyptian guy and he beat him. So, governor's son, so he's a prince. So he beat up this Egyptian guy. Now this guy, he didn't just take that beating, he came to Medina and he complained to Sayyidina Omar ibn Al Khattab Radi Allah Anhu. He said that this is what happened to me. Sayyidina Omar Radi Allah Anhu sent for Omar ibn Al-As Radi Allah Anhu and his son. So they both came to Medina. When they came to Medina, in the court, Sayyidina Omar Radi Allah Anhu established an inquiry, and when it was confirmed that this report was true, Sayyidina Omar gave his own durra, he gave his own whip to this man, and he said, and he called the son of Omar ibn Al-As Radi Allah Anhu, while his father was still sitting in the court. He called him in the middle of the court, in front of everybody. He said, beat this man. Take your revenge. So the man, hammered the hell out of him. When he finished, Sayyidina Umar said, now go, and that bald man, his father, take off his turban and hit him on the head with this durra for raising a son like this, who oppresses people. The man said, no, I will not touch the father. I am satisfied with the justice I got. and I will not do it. Now that is the level of strictness of Sayyidina Omar ibn Al Khattab رضي الله عنه. Now imagine also, Omar ibn Al رضي الله عنه is also a Sahabi of Rasulullah. He is not any ordinary man. He is a great general. He is the conqueror of Egypt. Yet he had the authority, Sayyidina Umar had the authority to be able to do something like this. And Sayyidina Amr ibn al-As had the discipline not to rebel, but to accept this correction from Sayyidina Umar ibn Al Khattab. If you look at it, the difference in ages between the two was not very much. Just a couple of years. Imagine what kind of adab and what kind of discipline was there in those people. Sayyidina Umar was also the first to introduce the public ministry system where the records of officials and soldiers were kept. He was also the first person ever to appoint police officers to keep civil order. Another important aspect of Sayyidina Umar ibn Al Khattab's rule was that he banned any of his governors and officials from engaging in trade or any sort of business dealings whilst being in a position of power. In my last khatra, I mentioned to you two cases of how he admonished and what action he took against his own sons when they indulged in trade while they were in position of the wealth. They were not in position of power officially, but because they were the sons of the Khalifa. Now, and then remember, what they did was not wrong at all in any sense of the term. What they did was halal. Yet Sayyidina Umar radiallahu anhu was so particular about these things. When the Muhajirun came to Medina, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam paired them off, each one of them with one of the Ansari Sahaba, and told them that they were brothers to one another. The basis of their brotherhood being faith. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam chose people who had nothing in common with each other, but the Sahaba once paired lived like brothers all their lives. Though they came from widely different backgrounds, social levels and tribal hierarchies, some were slaves, some were free people, some were African, some were Arab, and so forth. They bridged all those differences and they lived together literally in the same house as brothers. Slaves became the brothers of tribal chiefs, and an Arab, Abu Darda al-Ansari radiallahu anhu, became the brother of a Persian slave, Salman al-Farsi radiallahu anhu. Another Arab from a powerful tribe, Abu Ruwayha, became the brother of a former black African slave called Bilal bin Rabah radiallahu anhu. In both these cases, the two ex-slaves, Bilal bin Rabah and Salman al-Farsi radiallahu anhu, were higher in status than their host brothers because Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam included both of them in his household. They were among the Ahlul Bayt of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. The Sahaba understood this hierarchy of faith very well. It is stated that one day, during the Khilafah of Omar ibn Al Khattab radiyallahu anhu, Abu Sufyan bin Harb, Suhail bin Amr, and some other prominent Arab chiefs came to meet the Khalifa Omar ibn Al Khattab radiyallahu anhu. As you will recall, Abu Sufyan bin Harb had been the head of the Qurayshi opposition to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam after the death of Abu Jahl. And while his daughter Habiba radiallahu anha was married to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he came to Islam only after the conquest of Makkah. Suhail bin Amr radiallahu anhu was the envoy of the Quraysh during Hudaybiyah, who drove a very hard bargain and was highly disrespectful to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam during that negotiation. Both were very staunch Muslims once they came to Islam. Abu Sufyan bin Harb became the wa'idh, the exhorter, the speechmaker, the orator of the Muslim army, and would exhort the soldiers to be brave and steadfast in the face of the enemy. Suhail bin Amr was responsible, radiallahu anhu, for ensuring that the Quraysh of Makkah didn't rebel against zakat during the Khilafah of Abu Bakr Siddiq radiallahu anhu, when almost every other tribe in the Hijaz was rebelling. At that time, actually, the person who was appointed as the governor of Makkah, he ran away. Fearing for his life, he left his post. He ran away, and Suhail bin Amr radiallahu anhu, who at that time he had no official position, yet he was a great orator. So he came into the haram, he stood in front of the Kaaba, and he gave a speech which ensured that the rebellion was quelled. Just this one speech, and this potential rebellion was quelled, and the Quraysh did not rebel against zakat. They didn't become murtad. So this day, the day I'm talking about, Suhail bin Amr and Abu Sufyan bin Harb radiallahu anhuma, and one or two other Qurayshi chiefs, they came to meet Sayyidina Omar ibn Al Khattab radiallahu anhu. Coincidentally, Bilal and Suhaib al-Rumi also arrived to meet the Khalifa. When Sayyidina Omar ibn Al Khattab was told about them, he called them first, and the chiefs of Quraysh had to wait. Abu Sufyan could not restrain himself and turned to his companions, and he said, "It was our fate to endure this disgrace. The slaves are admitted to the audience, while we, the nobles of Arabia, stay at the door." Hearing this, Suhail bin Amr radiallahu anhu retorted. He said, "But who is to be blamed for this? Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam invited us all with one voice, but we refused his call and severely resisted him. On the other hand, these slaves came forward and accepted his message. So today, it is their right to get preference over us in this world and the next. We have no cause for complaint." Now, it was this sense of justice of the Sahaba, which was a mark of their truthfulness, which gave them the strength of character to conquer the world. The wages of obedience are preference in this world and the next. We come to the last part of this. Imam ibn Kathir rahmatullah alayhi said that when Omar ibn Al Khattab radiallahu anhu concluded his Hajj, all the rites of his Hajj in 23 Hijri, he prayed and he asked Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to take him to himself and to grant him shahada in the land of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, just as it is narrated by Zayd bin Aslam. Umar bin Khattab radiallahu anhu said, "O Allah, I ask you for shahada, martyrdom in your cause, and death in the land of your messenger Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam." And this is in Bukhari. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is indeed kind to whom He Jalla Jalaluhu wishes. He as a matter of fact, when our mother Hafsa bint Umar ibn Al Khattab radiallahu anha, the wife of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, she heard this dua. She asked her father. She said, "What kind of dua is this? If you want martyrdom, you should go to the frontier where battles are being fought. How will you get martyrdom in Medina? Right? This is the safest of places. This is where Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam himself is buried. How will you get martyrdom here?" So then Umar radiallahu anhu said, "It is my job to ask Allah. It is Allah's job to do whatever He wishes." Now it happened that there was a Magian. He was a fire worshipper from Iran, from now currently Iran, but those days Persia. Abu Lu'lu'a al-Fayrouz. Now he had some Roman origin. In Salatul Fajr, when Sayyidina Umar radiallahu anhu was leading Salah, this man rushed into the masjid and he stabbed him with a dagger in 2-3 places, 3 times, one of these below the navel. And Sayyidina Umar radiallahu anhu fell down bleeding copiously. So Abu Lu'lu'a also stabbed several other people before he was overpowered. He asked, Sayyidina Umar radiallahu anhu asked Abdurrahman ibn Auf radiallahu anhu to replace him to conclude the prayer. Abu Lu'lu'a withdrew his dagger but kept stabbing whoever came his way in the mosque until he stabbed 13 people, out of which 6 died as a result of their injuries. Abdullah ibn Auf radiallahu anhu threw his robe on him, and when he realized that he was going to be overpowered, Abu Lu'lu'a stabbed himself to death, and may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala la'natullahi alayhim, may Allah's curse be upon him. Omar ibn Al Khattab radiallahu anhu was taken to his house with blood gushing out of his wound, and all of this occurred before sunrise. Then Sayyidina Umar asked, who killed me? His companion said, Abu Lu'lu'a the Magian, the fire worshipper. Then Sayyidina Umar was very happy and he said, Alhamdulillah, who has not afflicted me from the hand of someone who subscribes to Tawheed, monotheism. I used to forbid you from sending to us any uncouth non-believer, but you disobeyed me. Then he asked, call for my brothers. They said, who? Sayyidina Umar radiallahu anhu said, Uthman, Ali, Talha, Zubair, Abdurrahman ibn Auf, and Saad bin Abi Waqqas. Now if you look at that, all of these people are among the 10 who were promised Jannah in this life, the Ashar Mubashara. This was the hierarchy of the Sahaba. First the Ashar Mubashara, the 10 who were promised Jannah, then the Sahaba of Badr, then everybody else. When they arrived, Sayyidina Umar radiallahu anhu said, I have looked into the affairs of the Muslims and I have found you 6 the foremost and best. I do not see authority fitting for anyone except one of you. If you are upright, then the affair of the people will be upright. If there is disagreement, it is because you had disagreed amongst yourselves. Now his blood was, they were kept mopping up the blood as the blood was flowing. They tried to restrict the bleeding. Then he said, consult for 3 days, and in the meantime, Suhaib al-Rumi should lead the people in prayer. They asked, who should we consult? Ya Amir Mu'mineen. He said, consult with the Muhajirun and the Ansar, as well as with the commanders of the armies. He requested for a drink of milk. When he drank it, the whiteness of milk could be seen oozing out of his wounds, and it was clear from this that he would die. He said, the time is now, that is of death. If I were to have the entire world, I would have given it out to ransom myself from the horror of the point of departure. Then his soul was taken. This happened on the 26th Dhul Hijjah, the 23rd Hijri, which corresponds with Wednesday, 7th of November, 644 CE or AD. He was 63 years old and his era extended for 10 years. As per Umar radiallahu anhu's will, he was buried with the permission of Aisha Siddiqa radiallahu anha alongside Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and the Khalifa Abu Bakr as-Siddiq in Masjid al-Nabawi al-Sharif. That's also another wonderful story. Sayyidina Umar, as he was dying, he said, please go and ask Sayyidah Aisha Siddiqa radiallahu anha if she will allow me to be buried next to my friends, meaning Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and Abu Bakr as-Siddiq radiallahu anhu. And he said, so Sayyidah Aisha Siddiqa, because Sayyidah Aisha Siddiqa's her own wish was to be buried next to her husband, next to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Imagine what kind of heart Sayyidah Aisha had, right? She could have said no, because this was her right, that she would be buried next to her husband. She did not say no, she said okay. She agreed. Then Sayyidina Omar ibn Al Khattab radiallahu anhu said, after I die, then go and ask her again. Now maybe she said yes because I am still alive and I am still the Khalifa, and maybe she is saying yes in obedience to me as the Amir. But once I am dead, I am gone, then I have no authority over anybody. And so then ask her again. If she says yes, then you bury me there, otherwise bury me in Baqi. So this was his own humility in asking, in telling people to ask Sayyidah Aisha Siddiqa radiallahu anha again, even though she had already permitted his burial. Some of the sayings of Sayyidina Umar ibn Al Khattab radiallahu anhu, which are Each one of them is worthy of thinking about and contemplating and reflecting on. One of the things he said was, whoever concealed his secrets will have the choice of telling whomever he wants to tell. But whoever speaks out or acts in a spacious manner should not blame anyone who thinks badly of him. He's saying if you keep your secrets to yourself, then you can decide who to tell it to. But if you are among those people, garrulous, who just keep talking all the time, then you can't blame people if they blame you. He said, do not think badly of a word spoken by your brother, by your fellow Muslim, when you can still find good ways to interpret it. Means think well of everyone. Don't think ill of anyone. Then he said, think positively of your brother until you are certain that he is not like that. And this is in correspondence also. Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam said, forgive your brother 70 times every day. So Sayyidina Umar Radhiyallahu Anhu is saying, think positively of your brother until you are certain he is not like that. Meaning until you are there, he is giving you proof that he is not like this. Then he said, do not swear a great deal lest Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala humiliates you. And this refers to the people who always say, oh, wallahi this, wallahi that, billah, wallahi I'll meet you, wallahi this, wallahi, billahi. All of these things, taking oaths with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, is not just a matter of taqiyya kalam or manner of speaking. These are serious matters. You don't just take an oath without the seriousness in it. Then he said, there is no better reward for one who disobeys Allah concerning you that you are obeying Allah concerning him. There is no better reward for one who disobeys Allah concerning you than you are obeying Allah concerning him. Meaning that if somebody is oppressing you, is doing something wrong to you, taking away your right, then obviously this person is disobeying Allah concerning you, meaning Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala ordered him to be just and fair. He is not just and fair, so therefore he is disobeying Allah concerning people. And he said the actual reward of that is you don't act like him. So you obey Allah concerning him. So what did Allah say? What Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam told us, and this is what Allah is inspiring him. He said, give to the one who has taken away your right, give him his right. Right? Be nice to the one who is being nasty to you. So he says, Sayyidina Omar Radhiyallahu Anhu says, this is the best reward. By obeying Allah concerning the other person, even though he is disobeying Allah concerning you. Then he said, you should seek sincere friends and maintain good relations with them. For they are a pleasure at times of ease, and they are a support in times of hardship. They are a pleasure in times of ease, and they are a support in times of hardship. So make good friends and keep good friends. Whenever Sayyidina Umar Radhiyallahu Anhu sent forth an army, he would advise them to fear Allah. Then he would say, when the standard of war is hoisted, in the name of Allah and upon the help of Allah, proceed with the backing of Allah and His support. Adhere to the truth and have patience. Adhere to the truth and have patience. He would say, fight in the name of Allah against those who disbelieve in Allah, and do not disobey, for Allah does not like the disobedient. Do not be cowards at the time, do not be cowardly at the time of meeting the enemy, and do not mutilate when you have the upper hand, and do not be immoderate when you conquer. Do not argue during fighting, meaning don't fight amongst yourselves. Do not kill women, the elderly, and children. So don't kill old people, don't kill women, don't kill children. Avoid killing them when two enemies meet and in the heat of attack in front of your enemy. Despite that, do not kill them. Do not go to the extreme with regard to spoils of war. Distance your intention for the war which is sacred from seeking it with its worldly honors, and rejoice at the profit that you have gained from the transaction that you have entered. That is indeed great success. This is Sayyidina Umar Radhiyallahu Anhu's wonderful quotes and sayings, and it shows us what the degree of the kind of wisdom he had, and what a huge blessing Sayyidina Umar radiallahu anhu was for all those who lived in his times and for generations thereafter. I mean, this is the amazing thing about him, radiallahu anhu, that to this day he is remembered by anyone who has love for Islam and love for the Rasul alayhi salatu wasalam, and love for love for the Muslims, that they honor Sayyidina Umar radiallahu anhu and learn from him and look up to him, because there was really no one who who equaled him in the kind of things that Sayyidina Umar radiallahu anhu did. Finally, I want to end with these beautiful words of Sayyidina Umar radiallahu anhu. He lived during the pre-Islamic era, the Ayyam al-Jahiliyyah, and he knew it inside out. He knew its true nature, its customs, traditions, and before he became Muslim, he defended it with all the power that he possessed. Therefore, when he entered Islam, he understood the beauty of Islam and the true nature of Islam, and he recognized the great difference between guidance and misguidance, disbelief and faith, truth and falsehood, and he spoke his famous words. He said, "The bonds of Islam will be undone one by one when there will be a generation brought up in Islam who do not know what ignorance is." And that's the beauty of Islam. He said a time will come that that a generation will be brought up in Islam who do not know what ignorance is. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala save us and protect us from ourselves, and help us to be among those who He Jalla Jalaluhu approves of, and help us to follow these great Sahaba and their beautiful examples in our lives. Wa sallallahu ala nabiyil kareem wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in bi rahmatika ya arhamar rahimin. Walhamdulillahi rabbil alamin.